Where the Great Plains meet the Midwest. Devney has big plans this day on his North Dakota farm.
Well, I'm going to probably be putting corn in here.
But there's been a little rain lately.
When it started raining, it just kept raining and raining.
And for farmers like Devney, the ponds and puddles left behind are a huge problem.
You got to go look. You ain't never going to believe the water over here.
The ponds and puddles are more than just a nuisance he needs to plow around. They are part of the most important waterfowl breeding habitat in the world.
We don't really want them.
Why do you have them if you don't want them?
Because the good Lord left them here.
We've come to Devney's farm to see how this wetlands ruling will impact his operations. By all accounts, the new rules spelled out in the Sackett decision allow farmers like Devney to finally drain those pesky ponds and puddles. But they're still here.
Like I said, you got to go on top of the hill, and you'll see how much water I got.
Before we go up that hill to take a look, some background on the controversial ruling. The case started when Michael and Chantel Sackett wanted to build a house in this North Idaho neighborhood. The Environmental Protection Agency declared their lot contained wetlands, ordered them to stop immediately, and threatened fines of $40,000 a day. Damian Schiff argued the case before the Supreme Court.
Not only their building project was stopped, but it was stopped in a way that was particularly aggressive, we thought, because of the relatively benign aspect of what the Sacketts were doing in building just a single-family home in a residential lot.
The case hinged on whether the Sackett's lot was linked to a nearby lake, a lake protected by the Federal Clean Water Act. There was no visible connection, but the EPA said because the lot was near a ditch that drained into a creek that entered the lake, it was connected and thus protected. In May 2023, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously it was not. And in the majority opinion, the court then narrowed the law so only streams and wetlands that are linked by a continuous surface connection to a body of water that is federally protected share that full protection. That ruled out many streams and wetlands that had previously been covered.
It was a devastating impact to people that care about small wetlands, small creeks. It is going to be interesting to see what the ramifications of that decision will be in different areas of the country.
All of our students are working on mapping wetlands.
Andy Robertson and his geospatial services team at St. Mary's University of Minnesota are trying to sort out that puzzle. They were already mapping how different interpretations of the Clean Water Act could impact wetlands in different regions of the country before the Sackett case. Their findings were submitted to the Supreme Court.
We created a set of models that demonstrated what would be connected and what wouldn't be connected under various interpretations of the language that's used in the Sackett case.
But because the ruling leaves key terms in the Clean Water Act up for interpretation, the future for wetlands is as muddy as pond water. And each state will decide what and how wetlands are protected. In that, Christine Oblock with the Clean Water for All Coalition sees trouble on the horizon.
Now, waters have different regulations on different sides of a state line.
Some states, such as California, have such robust rules already, the federal changes from Sackett will have little impact. And other states, Colorado and Illinois, for example, quickly propped up their state protections.
But none of the states that have worked to restore protections have gotten to parity with what we had at the federal level.
And what about the wetlands in the most important waterfowl habitat in the world? The prairie pothole region extends across 5 states and southern Canada. The so-called potholes are those ponds and puddles Devney dodges that temporarily pop up after snow melt and rainfall.
That's why you need to go drive over top of the hill.
We're going to do it right now.
There are hundreds of thousands of them on farms across the region. Divots in the landscape left behind by the retreating glaciers after the Ice Age.
That is really what catalyzes the whole breeding effort for ducks. Those are really shallow wetlands. They warm incredibly quickly, which then creates a bloom of invertebrate production, which nesting females use to develop their clutch of eggs.
Because people looking at that would say it's just a
It's a
big
puddle. It's just a puddle.
in a farm field.
Right.
Why is that important?
Why is it important is because that is the engine that drives the duck factory.
In addition to a buffet of high-quality protein from the invertebrates, the small potholes also provide a better habitat.
Ducks are territorial, so you have way more ducks on a bunch of little ponds than you have on one big pond.
But with the changes from the Sackett decision, combined with Denny's dislike of the ponds, you might think this waterfowl utopia is doomed. It turns out,
Sackett really won't have any impact on the majority of prairie pothole wetlands.
because the prairie potholes never qualified for federal protection under the Clean Water Act in the first place.
They're isolated. They aren't connected to the surface hydrography.
So why hasn't Denny just drained them? Because Denny has a deal with the ducks.
You got to save some of that stuff for the animals.
John Devney and his team at Delta Waterfowl changed Denny's mind.
We're here to make ducks for duck hunters.
Instead of programs that penalize farmers for removing wetlands, Delta Waterfowl developed a plan to incentivize farmers to keep them. Denny's farm was part of the pilot program. Under the Working Wetlands program, farmers get paid a per-acre rent that matches the cash they could get if they rented the land.
So you guys come out, basically conduct a survey of how much of his acreage is
in temporary and seasonal wetlands and small. The program only protects the ones up to 2 acres in size because those are the most vulnerable to drainage.
and the most important for the ducks.
And most important for the ducks, and they're the ones Denny is the most frustrated with.
The program is working so well, Delta Waterfowl is strategizing with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to scale it up. And Denny can focus on planting his corn,
We farm what we can farm.
knowing he's doing a good thing for the ducks.